Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily. It's me, your managing editor of WrestlingInc.com, Nick Hausman, joined here today for a very special Tuesday appearance. Is our friend EJ Cameron, not here today. It's our very good friend Paul Pratt. Paul, welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. Daily.
Oh man, what a luxurious week it was not having Wrestling Inc. Daily, but very happy to be back with our audience, our fans, our followers, our fellow pro wrestling lovers.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, have we won the Outsports Award yet? Do we know yet? Are they still sitting on
We did not win the Outsports Podcast of the Year, but Nick Hausman, you are sitting with Outsports QWI award-winning Pro Wrestling Personality of the Year.
That I can agree with. You know what? I'll take it as a win for the whole team. Yes.
It is a win for the whole team.
It is. It's a group effort here. That's amazing, Paul. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I actually just tweeted that it's entirely possible to spend decades working to become, to be viewed as an overnight sensation. And my 2021 has absolutely proved that.
Well, there you go. Hey, well, we got a lot to get to here today. I have a very lengthy Raw segment here, but as I looked at it, nothing really about that much, not that much about Raw, more about the goings on around Raw is what we're going to talk about here today. And then at the end of the show, we'll dive to the mailbag. We're going to continue on with what we're calling our Winkley end of the year awards.
I hated that. When he dubbed it the Winkleys, I was like, no, whatever. The Winkleys it is.
Yes, and Paul, right? Weeklies it is. But hey, look, MCASP here, by the way, saying congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Where did you wind up in the QWI 200?
Very good question. I do not rank on the QWI 200 because the QWI 200 is in-ring competitors. So I'm not an in-ring competitor. And so instead, I was separated out into a Personality of the Year award.
Oh, okay, got it. Well, not an in-ring competitor yet.
I'm actually gunning for the top 200 next year. I've got it in my head.
Hey, one step at a time. I think, hey, Paul, go the distance here. I think it's time.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Okay, so mailbag, news. That's really kind of about everything here. Oh, the chat room is open. That's what I wanted to point out here. Obviously, we already pulled some comments up on the screen. We go live Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern over on the Wrestling Inc. YouTube, Twitch, and all the other social channels. You ever want to tune in live? You want to see how the sausage is made here? If you're just listening to the audio form, check us out. And, of course, iTunes page. That's our big request here as we close out 2021. Your reviews help fuel our chartable pod chart success. So please go do that. Okay.
Yeah, don't go over there looking to find out how my sausage is made because I don't show that publicly.
Okay. It's a lot of duct tape, I'm pretty sure, right? Something like that?
Not my sausage.
Oh, sorry. That's sausage. I didn't know. It's the best I can think of at the moment. All right, everybody, let's get to it. News you can use, news that'll leave a bruise. Yeah, Monday Night Raw. So, again, we're going to talk more about the goings on around Raw, a little bit about the show. But PW Insider will start by saying the following names not at Raw: Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, Kevin Dunn, Director of Live Events, Adam Pearce, the Michael P.S. Hayes, who I guess is the Vice President of Creative Writing and Booking, which is a far more formal title than I had expected for Michael P.S. Hayes. Lead writer Ed Koski, head of talent relations John Laurinaitis. They were running the show. No official word on why these executives missed last night's show. Ringside News throwing in that no one knows why Pritchard's been absent, but Koski is filling in while he's away. So the mood among the writing team does not have the usual Bruce Pritchard vibe over it right now. Of course, we would be remiss if we didn't mention, of course, the multiple COVID outbreaks or the positive tests, I guess, that WWE has had as of late. So what are your thoughts on these big names not being backstage at Raw, Paul?
You know, despite the fact that this lack of production team has obviously heaped tons of extra work on the individuals in that environment, part of me feels like it must have been like a real relief to not have those people constantly breathing down your neck and rewriting everything you were doing. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah. And Vince is on, the speakerphone. I'm gathering, even when he's not there, he's there. But you could be on your phone probably, unless he's got you on like a video call or something like that.
Right. I mean, the idea of the people who are the primary sources probably of a lot of stress behind those scenes in terms of like yanking things, changing things at the last minute, barking in people's ears, yelling at people, whatever goes on there. And we've heard tons of these reports. These aren't just speculation. It's actual things that happen. Those individuals are gone. And we've all probably worked in a work environment where some levels of top management were really overbearing, and it was just like a sigh of relief when they weren't there, and you could just do your job and actually maybe, I don't know, God forbid, enjoy it for a moment.
Yeah, or get over, Anyway, Leo Pereira here saying the old people weren't at Raw because they're the ones most in danger. And maybe we don't know that for fact, but it certainly is in line with another report here for PW Insider saying the main roster producers have been hit hard by the COVID-19 positives, which yesterday's Raw taping became an extra long day. Now, a normal Raw taping usually has around a dozen or so producers to cover the 3 hours of programming. They're down to about half of that. And the fact that there's also a SmackDown Live event tonight in Orlando adds to the pressure as producers who could have been tapped to come to Raw now have their own rare Monday Night Live event to work instead. What a mess, Paul.
I mean, it's certainly what we are. I think that this actually seems to be what in line with what we're seeing in other industries, like for example, the airline industry having to cancel so many flights because so many flight attendants are out. All of these things where industries are being deeply impacted by COVID, by a number of people who are calling out sick or needing to be away from the work environment until they are able to clear the possibility of having come in contact with COVID, things like this. It just happens to be done on a very public scale where we are analyzing this on a daily basis.
Yeah, and Sophie Dofi here, great name, by the way, saying there were probably a lot of rewrites for Raw. And that was a super chat. Thank you, Sophie. Cut to the front of the line. Yeah, I would guess with all these people calling out, there were probably some rewrites last night on Raw. For sure. It felt like there was a lot more video packages. I'll put it that way.
I mean, I think that we're going to be talking about one of the rewrites coming up later in the show.
We will be, yes. There is at least one major rewrite that we know of. Continuing on here, trying to get past all the COVID stuff so we can talk to the actual meat of the story stuff that Paul just alluded to. Certain talents who were not featured on the weekend shows were taken off in order to protect WWE's Day One show. So just as a refresher, names were pulled off the road over the weekend when the COVID outbreaks happened. Roman Reigns was pulled off the road. Edge subbed in for Seth Rollins, who became COVID positive. He took on Kevin Owens in a steel cage. So a lot of moving pieces here right now. So this is for the main event matches in particular. The only person from the two major title bouts at Day One that wrestled over the weekend was Kevin Owens. Is that a badge of honor, Paul?
They're probably like, we just paid you $3 million, so get out there and earn it.
It's true.
March your ass right out to that cage and fight.
Now, it is important for WrestleMania that Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, and Paul Heyman are all on the pay-per-view this weekend. And while it's unclear exactly what that means, it would appear WWE has plans for them all, which is just kind of a follow-up to what we've been talking about before with multiple matches between Brock and Roman. But, man, we saw what happened with Roman last time, when he felt uncomfortable and then he was in a dangerous situation. He's immunocompromised from his battles with leukemia. And now he's back in this situation. Omicron's on the rise. And on top of that, the Fightful report that came out yesterday about how WWE is now no longer testing every 2 weeks. That's not a necessary thing for them anymore. I don't know, man. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I know a lot of people are saying it. There may be nothing to it. And maybe Roman has his own assurances. But this is we're getting closer to the point where it was a breaking point for Roman the last time this came about,
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a case of like losing your smile, Shawn Michaels. This is a case of I have a bone marrow borne illness that attacks my immune system, which attacks my ability to fight off even common colds at times. I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah, which is fair. So
absolutely fair.
Totally fair. And on the note about how WWE's handling their protocols at the moment, talent who are vaccinated will now only do that for 5 days, the quarantining. Now, this is in line with the new CDC recommendations. However, they must test negative on 2 consecutive days before being allowed back into the ring. This effectively bumps the quarantine to 6 days from first testing to wrestling again. So, this, again, it's a little bit more than we got from the Fightful report. I was really kind of gobsmacked and shocked by the Fightful report. It does seem like there is still some testing going on here, at least on the main roster. And I would think if you're going to be bringing people like Grayson Waller over to, Monday Night Raw, that guy's going to be getting tested as well. I would hope,
Our initial reports made it sound as if they were absolutely scrapping any kind of COVID testing, any kind of preventative measures. That's not what they're doing. They are adjusting as the world adjusts. And quite fortunately, the things that we're beginning to find out are that for those who are fully vaccinated, the Omicron has greatly reduced side effects, right? And as a result, the likelihood that they could become impactful or harmful to other people seems to be reduced as per the CDC.
Yeah. Well, good news is, according to the Observer, when it comes to WWE's Day 1, at the moment, everybody who is advertised to be there is expected to be appearing. So, hey, let's all knock on whatever wood you're around right now. Pour one out, right? So let's hope for the best. And on that note, Sophie Dofi back with another super chat. Kevin Owens versus Edge for Mania. Who knows? I mean, look, if it worked well at MSG, maybe we get some more Kevin Owens Edge.
Do we know if Kevin or Edge went over in that match?
Pretty sure Edge went over in that match.
I'm sure he did.
I knew somebody was going to bring that up at some point. I was like, I don't have to know that, and I didn't look it up. But I'm pretty sure Edge won that match.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. I mean, it's only makes sense.
So if you want to correct me or confirm my my guess, the chat room is open to you right now. Now, you earlier said that maybe all the adjusting here, right? There was at least one story that played into this. I don't think that this story necessarily may be COVID related, but we'll see. Maybe there is something to it. So WWE initially had Omos versus AJ Styles announced for Raw. This would be the first big singles match between the two partners. However, Styles ended up instead defeating Apollo Crews after an angle with Crews and Commander Aziz, and Omos was nowhere to be seen. They did air recap vignette about AJ and Omos. Now, PW Insider saying Omos not backstage. He was sent home earlier in the day, leaving Detroit to fly back home before the Raw taping began. Omos did work Sunday's WWE live event from MSG in New York City, losing to Styles via DQ. And according to the Observer, this match was not good. It was not a well-received match backstage. And as Meltzer kind of put it in the newsletter, it may have just been a situation of like, maybe we shouldn't put this on TV, right? Maybe you should just go home. We'll let this settle. You guys could go work in a warehouse or something and figure out how wrestling works. But I don't know that that's 100% a COVID one there,
I don't know. The reports that he was sent home early to me made it like my inclination was that it could very well be COVID related. Like, oh, you go home and get yourself together. You got 6 days to clear this, and and then you'll be back in time for day one or what have you. But with, I'm not entirely shocked that this did not pan out on an in-person, type of match level, because Omos, for as much potential as people seem to see in him, has been largely carried throughout the last year of his career that we've seen on television by AJ Styles. AJ Styles does 3/4 of the work, and Omos, it's very akin, for those who remember back to Haku being teamed with Andre the Giant when Andre the Giant literally could not move. You know what I mean? So it's very similar to that. So Omos has been carried. It's given him a great spotlight and given him a lot of shine, but is he ready to go one-on-one with, of all people, AJ Styles?
I mean, if you got to give it a couple days for him to go down to the Performance Center or work with AJ, I mean, this could be a last-minute thing to throw on day one. I was really surprised they were doing it at Raw. And maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's the third situation here, is they just said, what are we doing, guys? We've been building this thing for a year. We're gonna
Why are
throw
we
away.
giving it away?
Why are we giving it away on Raw? Right? So that's
why give anybody some reason to tune into Raw? Like that's absolutely absurd.
dude.
Why give them a reason to tune in?
There's only one thing I have left written down here coming out of Raw to talk about. And I mean, look, Bischoff was back. Wonderful little priest there for the renewal of the vows. You got Miz and Maurice and Eric got blood. I don't know. That's not it looked like blood to me, So, that I guess is something people are talking about, but really not anything else kind of grab you on this show last night, Paul?
No, and I will be completely blunt with the listeners in large part because I know that many of them follow me on Twitter. I tried my best to watch this even without knowing that I was going to be on here with you today. And
Sure.
I sat through most of the first hour, and it's not that it was bad. I've just zoned out of it so much that I have absolutely no investment that keeps me any longer wanting to watch 3 hours of programming that I don't care about.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's rough to find myself invested in this show at the moment for a lot of reasons, right? But the thing that I guess was biggest and buzziest and is still trending on Twitter right now is Veer, right? Veer is coming to Raw. We've had this vignette running. I mean, I don't know, man. The Glacier comparison gets used an obnoxious amount, but we got to be getting close. How long did Glacier run? How long did that vignette run for? I'll look it up.
I don't know, but the part of this that is a little bit confounding is that Veer has already been on Raw. Veer has already been here. We've watched him lose multiple times in handicap matches to Drew McIntyre. How seriously can I take a guy who was being defeated in these handicap matches when there were two huge monsters and they still could not stand up against one Drew McIntyre? I'm not saying that he shouldn't be repackaged and given other opportunities because I thought that he had a lot of potential, but at the same time, this is not like we're being reintroduced to him as a new character. This is the same character, and it's fresh in our minds that he was being defeated regularly, routinely, and fairly easily by Drew McIntyre just 6 months ago.
Okay, they had the Glacier vignette in WCW ran for 5 months. I don't know that we're
nowhere near that. 5 months ago, he was on TV losing to Drew McIntyre.
Dude, that's crazy. First of all, it's nice that the internet exists and I could quickly find that information out. But man, 5 months of Glacier is coming. Damn. How odd.
It's no wonder that didn't go over better. By the time he arrived, people were over him.
Man, it's weird. Bischoff was on the show. They're getting all this Veer tie-in. So anyway, what really blew the whole Veer thing up, WWE's Twitter account tweets Send Veer, an obvious direct reference to AEW's Send Hook. I don't know if they were trying to rag Hook or get attention. I'm not really sure, but Taz has leaned into it. Everybody's making comments about it. Send Veer. Maybe because there's you're under expecting from Veer, kind of like you were with Hook. Maybe that's why they kind of see him similarly. I don't know. Fear Veer. I like that, Antonio Garcia. Fear Veer.
Fear Veer is better. Fear Veer.
Yeah.
Good job, Antonio Garcia. Yeah, I mean, Veer is a huge man. Veer has a tremendous amount of potential to be marketed as something of an Indian Braun Strowman, if you want to. He's got that size. He's got that same kind of menacing appearance. It could be very plausible that he could have something extremely interesting done with him. The likelihood that actually happens is pretty minimal, but there is a plausibility there.
All right. Lastly here, the big news before we get to the mailbag, Goldberg was on the Pat McAfee show about 2 hours ago. And he once again said he's only got one match left in WWE. That's not new news. But what is new news here is he confirmed that his shoulder really beat up. He is going to need shoulder surgery, but he's putting it off until after his last match in what will be, it sounds as if, the end of his career. So this is it, Paul. He's teeing this thing up like there's only one more Goldberg match. How do you make it count here?
I'm not sure because I don't think any of the last Goldberg matches have counted. The last series of them have not counted. So, the reality of probably what we're going to see is they're going to trot him out one more time the same way that he always does, where it becomes a scenario where, he's demanding that match that he's done nothing to earn in the last 5 years or whatever. The thing that I think that would make the most sense is if somehow they can, partner this with, if obviously they were trying to get his kid over, which is strange because his kid's like 14. So I don't see how you can drag that out and make it even logical. It would have been much more interesting if he could have come in and done something to help get his son over, if that's what his son wants to do. But we're still years away from that even being possible.
Well, I see MCAS Pierce saying Biggie, and Biggie obviously wants, big meaty men bumping meat, right? Like that's his whole gimmick. He's talked about it. I'd be fine with it. But I feel like if you're going to use, like Goldberg's last match shouldn't be used with somebody who's like an established talent. I prefer Mike M here, who says Goldberg versus Braun Breaker. I had actually also thought Braun Breaker. I also think maybe that's insane because he's still a little green. But somebody akin to that who's like, on the cusp, could use a big program, could use a big win, something to gloat about for years to come, how they retired Goldberg. I don't know exactly who that is, but I would prefer it be somebody like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that if they are going to make this sort of like the circle of life thing, he should come in and put over somebody in the same way that countless people put him over when he was green as hell, and pass the torch in that way. And I think that it should be somebody who's up and coming. I know this is going to get me a great deal of heat from the audience, but Big E, whatever they're doing, like Big E is a nice WWE champion. I don't view him as being any longer term or lasting in his impact than Kofi Kingston. So I think that putting him in a program where he defeats Goldberg would be a waste unless they are planning, to make him something long term. And I just don't see that. So, I think that putting somebody like a Braun Breaker over him would be much more beneficial because that's somebody they're clearly investing in for the future.
All right. Well, Paul, thank you for joining me at the top of the show, talking all the news today. Thank you to everybody for tuning in here. I see even more write-ins. We got Goldberg Riddle. That's from Antonio Garcia. Samantha
Terrible.
saying, Happy Corbin.
Terrible.
Maybe he's the man to retire Goldberg. He retired Kurt Angle. Could be the retirer. It's a weird. I don't like that. Retirer.
Yep.
Sounds like a mechanic. We're gonna get into the mailbag segment here now. Wrap up the show before we do some into the show kind of banter here. The Winkleys, right? We have no rules. Everyone can vote as long as you're on Twitter. If you have multiple Twitter accounts, what are you doing with your life? That's no reason to vote multiple times. So today's Winkley category, a big one. What male pro wrestler had the best 2021? We have just over 400 votes here in the last hour. 52.1% Roman Reigns, 25.3 Kenny Omega, 18.8 Bryan Danielson, and 3.8 somebody else. Who do you feel was the male performer that had the best 2021?
I voted for Roman Reigns. I think that, in terms of somebody who has used the last 12 months to recreate themselves almost entirely, redefine themselves, and to define an entire brand, nobody in my opinion can compare with what Roman Reigns has done.
Yeah, and look, very strong case for Roman, and I almost feel like we're going back to the PWI 500 debate. Roman Kenny, right? Roman pushed a lot of merchandise, but for my money here, I think Bryan Danielson may have had the best 2021. I mean, the guy headlined WrestleMania, right? He leaves on overly reported good terms with the company, gets to have a huge debut at AEW, is immediately put in the main event picture of the other big company. He's doing the best work of his entire career. I don't know, like on a personal and professional level, maybe he didn't sell as many T-shirts as Roman Reigns, but I don't know, man. I thought Bryan Danielson had a real banger 2021, man. That was a fun year for him.
I agree with you. I think that he undoubtedly has had a fantastic year. I think that, there are certainly arguments that could be made for him. There's certainly arguments that could be made for Kenny Omega, but I really do believe that when looking back on this year as the one person who walked out of 2021 at a place that is significantly higher than they walked into it at, that to me is Roman Reigns. He elevated himself. He elevated his cousins. He elevated his brand. He carried that brand. He was the most important and most talked about and most noteworthy and newsworthy part of an entire product. And I think that that's what makes me feel so strongly that even though I'm not a diehard Roman Reigns fan, I'm looking at it sort of in a modestly objective way, because I think that the criteria for what it means to have like that year, he's had it. And I think maybe it could also be motivated by the fact that for years and years, I thought everything that they tried with him was an absolute and abject failure. And finally, they've done something that has hit, and he gained all the traction that they had been pumping into him for 5 years in 1 year.
All right, I'm going to bounce back and forth between Twitter write-ins and live comments here, because I like some of both. So you weighed in on this one. This comes from the @Chad Cooper. They wrote in Matt Cardona, who, again, maybe not Roman Reigns levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would argue I still like my Bryan Danielson case. But Cardona had he had a fun 2021. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that if you're looking for a wrestler that exceeded all expectations, that turned absolute lemons into lemonade and became a bigger star than I think many would have ever imagined him being, Matt Cardona falls right into that category. I mean, he redefined himself in the world of professional wrestling in a way that is remarkably difficult to find comparison for.
Well, and he helped GCW kind of level up in a way as well. He brought He brought so much attention to him, himself, and he was, showing a different side of it. Was very compelling. Still very compelling to see this side of Matt right now, and that's why when you talk about Roman coming in and elevating everybody around him and stuff like that, Matt kind of did that. He's done that. I mean, the entirety of GCW definitely gave Nick Gage probably the most compelling feud mainstream wise of probably his entire career. Literally,
the bank feuding with Nick Gage, that was a compelling one too. But that was years ago.
Yeah, or Nick Gage versus decision making when it comes to wearing masks, but whatever. He gave Nick Gage a hell of a program. Look at the rub Effie's getting right now. I mean, the guy is certainly helping.
Effie's getting a rub, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Effie is giving Matt Cardona almost more of a rub, because yes, like people, are fully aware of that feud between the two of them, but Effie had a kind of the same thing could be said with Nick Gage. Both of them have an indie credibility that Cardona needs and wants coming out of his career in WWE.
Yeah, all good points. I like Joshua Rosenbaum here pointing it out. He's saying Cody probably made the most money. Now, I don't know that that's true. I actually don't believe that to be true. But did Cody have the best year? He certainly got, I'll say this, he certainly got everybody kind of in the palm of his hand here, wondering what's going to happen next with Cody Rhodes here as we go into 2022.
No, Cody hasn't even had the best year of his career. There are previous years of his career that I think that, some real arguments could be made for him as one of the absolute names at the top of the list of that. Thinking about when he left WWE and did things that were comparable to what we're seeing actually Matt Cardona doing right now, when he became this darling of the indie circuit, when he went to Ring of Honor, when he, was in Impact, when he was doing NWA, all of these things where he became an integral part of the fabric of the community. I think that those years would be more defining to me of what Cody Rhodes is capable of than this past year.
I like this one here from at XXRT345. You also responded to this one as well. Kevin Owens, when the year started, everyone on Twitter was whining how Owens was booked like shit, including me. He looked miserable at times. Teased an AEW run, got drafted to Raw, had some great matches, re-signed, and is now apparently $3 million a year richer if rumors are true. Him and Sami Zayn, I would say, had equally good years. I would put those two neck and neck. I don't know at the top, but I think very wise of those two to suck up all that WWE money here for the next 3 years while everybody else is running out the door. They might be the smartest foxes in the hen house at the moment.
I agree. And my response to that tweet was $3 million a year sounds pretty successful to me. I mean, I also think that they are very smart because, their place in WWE is fairly well set. And WWE always, even if it doesn't give them the accolades that I think most of us think that they deserve, they're always fairly well placed because they are always a credible foil to whoever the champion is. They're always in that mix. And at any time they could be elevated or, but they never drop down to opening card status. They're always in the upper mid card. And it's very possible because both of them strongly have stated that they want to have the tag team titles together. And I think that there are probably things written into those contracts that go beyond just some big dollar values.
Last one I'll throw up here is from Leo Pereira. Danhausen had a great year too. And I think that this was a very good year for Danhausen. I mean, the last 3 years have all kind of just spiraled upwards, but the best year for Danhausen, we have not seen yet. Maybe it will be 2022 when he gets healed. 2023 is probably when he's going to find his groove. I think we might be even looking at 2024 being the year of Danhausen. I think it's going to take him a little second to get up and going after this injury, but we have not seen the best year of Danhausen yet.
Danhausen is somebody that I appreciate. I watch the things that Danhausen does, the way he has elevated his profile in the world of professional wrestling, and somebody who is so gimmick and character driven as Danhausen is an obvious parallel of interest for somebody like myself who plays a pretty severe, distinct character and persona too. So, I love watching his success and I love taking little mental notes and being like, maybe I should do that. By the way, I got look, Nick, look.
Hey, it's Jasper.
Drewy.
Oh, it's Drewy.
Drew.
No, this is Drew.
Jasper would have growled if I lifted him. Anyway, go on.
Sorry. Anyway, no, that's all I got. That's the end of the show. The show came to a close when Doobie came onto the screen, right? So
look, Doobie dog, say hi.
Is this Drewby?
Drewy.
Oh man, I wish I could
get
get Willow.
Correct you in the chat.
No, nobody's correcting. Should I go get Willow? You want me to go get Willow?
Yes, go get Willow.
Hang on for a second. I'll go get my dog. Willow's never been on screen.
Y'all, this is going to be like a Willow reveal. For those who, while Nick is gone, for those of you who watch me regularly at twitch.tv/Pollo Del Mar, my dogs are incredibly over on that Twitch stream, which is not a surprise. I mean, Effie told me personally that he stopped taking his dog Cranberry to shows with him because the lines of fans to meet Cranberry were longer than the lines of fans to meet Effie, and that was unthinkable. Oh my gosh, look at this.
Hello, everybody.
Willow! Hi, Willow. Oh, what a cutie pie Willow is.
Dog. Yep, this is my dog, Willow. She's beautiful and perfect.
Oh, we've heard a lot about Willow, but we've never seen her. By the way, Willow, congratulations on your family. Your parents finally no longer going to be living in sin soon.
Yes. She's very happy to be part of a real family now.
She's like, all the dogs at the dog park call me a bastard. A bastard child.
All right. That brings us to the end of the show, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow. I'll be joined by Brian Wool, and then come back Thursday. If you want more Paul and I are going to re-team up here Thursday, talk some more news. Of course, support WrestlingInc.com. We're at all the socials. Come back tonight after NXT for the Wrestling Inc. podcast. That's always a lot of fun. And, of course, this weekend, it's at New Year's Day on Saturday, and on New Year's Day, WWE presents Day One. We got coverage all weekend long, all things Day One, including the Wrestling podcast after that show on Saturday night as well. All right, Paul, what do you want to put over here before we wrap up the show today?
Hey, follow me on Twitter. It's the Glamazon PDM. It's especially important right now. Money, Power, Respect, my tag team that I manage, just made it to the quarterfinals of voting for NorCal Tag Team of the Year. And I really want to be able to harness all of y'all so you can come over and vote for us. Expect to be nagged significantly. And
I like all the nice comments about Willow. Appreciate that. Maybe Willow will come back. And I also saw some people get the conversation going about who was the female wrestler with the best 2021. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Thursday. We're gonna run that poll as well. Probably maybe tomorrow. We'll just follow straight up. So
yeah, y'all, we're gonna do that. We're gonna run through that for sure.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I am at Nick _Hausman. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And remember, if you winked,